fresh off a media day on Wednesday. Coach, you want to give an opening statement to the group, and then we'll take questions.
Yeah, I was really excited to go down to Charlotte with Dallin and Malik, and just experience ACC basketball. The tip-off, everybody's excited about the season. Each school, each coach. I know the fan bases are excited as well, and looking forward to a fun season. Our team's working hard right now in preparation. It's moving really fast. It's amazing that we have exhibition games right around the corner in the next 2 weeks, and the guys are enthused about the opportunity to play against somebody else. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has.
Okay, start with Jeff, and then we'll go Greg Medina.
You mentioned the 2 exhibition games. Do you approach them differently than you would have closed scrimmages, and if so, how?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure yet because this is the first time we've done it. What I would say is the first game, you're going to be a little bit less prepared because it's earlier, right, than you would in the second one, and that's typical from year to year of how it is, because you just don't only have so much time to get stuff in, and the Vanderbilt scrimmage or exhibition will be a little bit different format, than probably the Villanova format will be, because really it's up to the 2 coaches how they want to do it, and I think we're probably going to do quarters over there at Vanderbilt. Haven't talked to Coach yet, Coach Willard at Villanova yet about ours here, but I think for me, I want to see the guys against another team, and so for us to be able to play as many guys as we can, get them out on the court, get them some experience, especially with an entirely new roster. I think it's really important, certainly for both teams, to have that opportunity to do that.
Great.
Yeah, I'm wondering, you have a lot of older veteran players on your team. What's been their influence on Chance as he's starting his development, as he's getting ready for his first season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been tremendous. I would encourage you to ask him that, question as well a little bit later. But, I think Dallin's done a great job, of communicating with him, and those 2 have hit it off. Malik, certainly, even some of the older guys up front as well, Devin and Tess. But Chance, Chance is a guy who, he's played a lot of basketball in his life, and he's always played against older guys, and has never really been phased. And so, while he is a first year now, he doesn't play like a first year, most days in practice. And that's not to say that he hasn't had any ups and downs. We all do, in preparation for the season. You're not going to play perfectly, but Chance is a fun guy to coach. He's a fun guy to be around. He's a sponge out there. He's competitive. He's a really smart basketball player, and so I know he does, like his teammates a lot, and appreciates their willingness to be there for him.
Jackie, then Booty, then Mike.
With a lot of new guys coming in together over the course of the last few months, have you figured out the identity of this team, or how would you define this group right now coming into this part of the season?
Yeah, I think, unselfish, certainly is one of the words that I would use with this team. They've done a great job. They're a little bit further ahead offensively, I think. Will that translate in these first 2 scrimmages? I don't know, but just, in my own experience, looking back at teams that we've had, a little bit more versatility up front, guys that can score in and around the basket, but also have size but can go away as well, which is good. So defensively, they've done a good job so far of, developing, our full court, pressure. They're getting better daily. That we're seeing growth in the half court defense as well. Still areas that need to improve. The rebounding, has to improve against one another. We're offensive rebounding really well, but we're not defensive rebounding, at least against ourselves, the way that we need to. So there's a lot of room for growth, and that's normal this time of year. But I do like, the mood of the team. They come every day to work. They're energetic. They seem very committed to doing their best, this season.
Jerry, then Mike, and then Marcus.
The last time we talked to you, you were, I don't know if you're jokingly saying it, but you've talked about how Grunlow or Tess is kind of a bully in practice sometimes. Can you expand on that a little bit and just talk about how physical these guys have been in practices?
Yeah, I think, it's an area that, we've tried to coach them on, since day one. One of our constants is, physical without fouling. And, last year at VCU, we preached it every day, but we fouled a lot. It was one area where, we needed to improve and never quite got exactly where we wanted to be, overall is one of our shortcomings. But this particular team has size, and at different positions and some girth as well. I think Tess told me yesterday he's 248, right now. It's a big body for a 6'8" guy. And, when you have bodies like that, crashing together, it's a physical standoff. And Tess certainly is willing to use his body. I think that's one of his strengths. Johan's working his way into it. He's only 19 at this point, and so while he has seen some bigger bodies, in his previous stop, in Germany, I think it'll be a different level, here for him. And so he's working his way, through that. But I do like where we are right now, with that. But ultimately, our opponents are going to tell us, are we ready or not? And so we've got two coming at us, in the next 2 weeks that will give us a lot of information about what we need to do.
Mike, then Marcus.
Ryan said a couple times areas that you guys are a little bit ahead maybe of where you expected. Is that a product of you have an older roster, you've got guys who played a lot of basketball, they haven't played together, but is that what you'd attribute some of that ahead of schedule to?
Yeah, I think the character is the number one thing. I think we've established and put together a roster of guys that, they're just really good dudes. They enjoy one another. They're committed to coming in and learning every single day. And so you're ahead of the game when you have that, for sure. And then, we've got some experience. You have a guy like Dallin Hall who's, played in the Sweet 16 last year, and Devin Thomas, they won 30, or Tillis, excuse me, they won 30 games at UC Irvine. And so, we have that experience, throughout our roster, that, can pay dividends for us. But ultimately they have to play well together. And so that's what we're working on, each and every day.
Coach,
Sorry.
Coach, when you look at recruiting international players who obviously play a different style of play as they're growing up here in America, how do you identify what will fit in here? And do you think in certain areas international players are further down the road to contribute earlier in certain categories and skills?
A lot of times these younger players overseas, they're playing against better talent night in and night out, than American kids. And AAU is a different story because you're kind of bringing the best around the country together. High school is a little bit different, when you're playing for your hometown team, and that's natural. And so I think just their system lends itself for them to be a little bit more advanced, offensively. But obviously, we've been fortunate over the years to have some really good international players, on each team that I've been fortunate enough to coach. And, this group that we brought in, this year, I'm really proud of them. I'm excited about, what's to come for them this season. And, I think, their skill level, while they're all a little bit different, their skill level, I think you'll see, matches our style of play.
Luke, and then Michael.
Yeah, Coach, can you compare and contrast your two 5-men or true 5-men in Ugo and Johan and their skill sets?
Yeah, I would say both of them, have done a really nice job so far of protecting the rim for us. When our guards are going downhill and attacking and they're back at the rim, they're really tough to score over. And so that's something that we're going to need, this year. Johan initially we knew was, a three-point shooter, a guy that could knock it down from behind the arc. Ugo, we had no idea at that point that he could. He's never attempted a three in a game. He's never attempted a three in a practice so far in his career until he arrived at UVA. And so it's one of the pleasant surprises, for us. Again, I've said it before, it's not going to be high volume. It's more about shooting wide open ones and giving him the confidence to do that. And so if he, shows that he can produce in games, then we'll let him continue to do that. But I think they both can pass. I've been really impressed, when they have the ball in their hands out on the perimeter and we're moving and cutting. They've shown an ability to find guys and get baskets for guys with their passing. They both have the ability to get behind the defense and pick and roll and catch high passes. They both had 2 yesterday, in practice, 2 each in practice. That is always good to see, because you can't just back up off of them. And I think the versatility that they're going to bring, to the team is something that our coaching staff hasn't had in recent years in terms of having a 5-man that could step out and shoot like these 2 guys can. And so we're excited to utilize their gifts.
Michael, and then we'll take one in the back, the middle, and then back to Jeff.
At what point in his high school did you and Owen start talking about him coming to play for you? Did your taking this job change that at all? And then is it ever a challenge managing the relationship with your son and as a player?
Yeah, it's a beautiful gift, for me personally and for Lucia, to have had, both of our sons, be around during college. Because obviously usually it's, they're going away to college and, you're dropping them off at school and you don't see them for several months and holidays and stuff. It's that just the natural order of events. And, for us to be able to have this time still together, is really important, for me personally. And Owen has no expectations of playing. He understands, what his role is, on the team, relative to, and he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. He could certainly be elsewhere, playing, but understands what Virginia is, and so he just wants to be a part of the team and really help the team in practice. And I think the person that it's hardest on is Lucia because she's used to being there with him all the time because I'm coaching others, and so she's at all of his games and she's with him on a daily basis. And now all of a sudden he's not calling as much. He's busy doing his own thing in college, and so that can be difficult. But obviously he's close by, so he'll sneak in every now and then to wash his clothes or whatever he needs to do. But he's enjoying the experience so far at UVA, and we're really pleased that he's here.
Coach, I know you've stayed in touch with a lot of the guys from that 2018 UMBC team, and
Yeah.
a couple years ago when you were at Utah State, you mentioned when the 5-year anniversary came around from that tournament game, the group chat flared up with all those guys, and you were recounting a lot of memories. So I'm wondering if that chat may have flared up again. When you
That was when. Good question. That was when FDU was playing Purdue. The group chat started going back and forth, and there were some funny lines in there. But that team's special. Will always be special to me. The kids that were on that team, some of them are married now, some are getting ready to have kids, some already have kids, and so we'll always have that time together. But I've definitely received texts, since I've been here, And, one of the players has been here, a couple of times, Brandon Horvath, who he actually didn't get in the game. He was a first year that season, but played for us over the course of the year, but not in the NCAA tournament. And he's a great kid. He played for us at Utah State as well. So he and his now wife got married, this summer, and so some of our staff that coached him went up to the wedding, and so we were able to see quite a few of his teammates, that were on that team.
Back to Jeff White, then we'll take a
Do
couple.
you have a sense of how deep into the bench you will go in most games, and how deep your rotation will be, or is that to be determined?
It's to be determined. I mean, we want to play as many as we can. When you're pressuring up the court, it takes, a certain level of fitness to do that. And it's really tough to play 30-plus minutes, and, playing that hard. And so you definitely want, 8, 9, 10, right in there. And so I think we have, 10 guys right now that, are pretty good players, all good players and we have more than that, but in terms of 10 that I could put in a game, probably that's where we're going to start. So we'll see.
Coach, looking ahead towards conference play, it looks, at least the eye test says it's a pretty tough conference lineup in terms of the amount of away games, starting it out with Tech and NC State, then Louisville and Duke both away. I guess what's your impression of the away lineup and the away slate for conference play, and how do you use the fall to prepare for what looks like it could be a bunch of tough road games? Yeah,
there's no question about it. There's certainly all the games are going to be tough. I mean, when you're inside your own conference, it's really competitive. We know that the ACC is going to be a lot better this year than it was last year, and so we've got to do our job in preparation, for that. And how do you compete for a championship? You do really well at home. You win games on the road as well. Last year at VCU, we were able to kind of do both, and it put us in a really, really good position. But it's hard to win on the road, and other fan bases can get involved. Certainly, you worry more about the players and the coaching staff than you do the fans. But it's going to be a challenging, beginning to the conference play, and we understand that, and so you try to do your best to put the team in situations where they're going to be challenged in practice, and where they have to work through tough situations together in practice, so that they're ready when the games do come.
One in the middle, and then one I asked the second.
Yeah, Coach, at the ACC tip-off, you and the guys talked a lot about developing team chemistry over the summer, especially off the court. Now that official practices have started and kind of on the court, what are some pairings that you've really noticed or enjoyed in practice in terms of that chemistry as well?
Yeah, I think they're more comfortable with one another, and the way you notice that is when challenging situations arise. Team gets scored on, 2 players are involved in some sort of mistake, that they own up to it, and they're not afraid, to communicate with one another about it. When you don't know someone, naturally those types of situations, you can just kind of let them go. And I'm noticing now that, these guys are taking ownership, of their own behaviors, but then they're also not afraid, to communicate with others when their behaviors aren't where they need to be. And so that's the mark of a team that's beginning to become more connected. And so we certainly want to continue along that path of growth to becoming the most connected team that we can be.
One in the middle, and then Mike again.
Coach, this is not your first rodeo in terms of going to a new stop and going to a new conference. Just after doing this for so many times, what are some of the things that you've kind of learned about approaching, not just a new program, but also just kind of competing in that new conference?
Yeah, it's a very good question. For me personally, obviously there are more teams, in this league. You're only playing 2 teams twice. And so in a normal conference, at UMBC, we were playing everybody twice. and then Utah State played pretty much everybody twice, but one team. And so VCU, a lot different. We had, I think it was maybe 4 teams twice, something like that. And so this will be a lot different, from that. And so it's 1 game preps. Sometimes, obviously, you're going to be on the road against that opponent. You want to do your best in the matchups where you have 2. You're playing a team twice. Those are really important games. And then again, trying to steal as many on the road as you can. But you're not going to have the luxury of, we played them this first time. All right, we know exactly what they are. For the second time. And so the scouting's going to have to be tight. The retention by the players is going to have to be tight in terms of the preparation for those particular games. And teams change over the course of the season. So what you see in early January, from a team that you don't play until even March, or late February, going to be a lot different. And so likewise, if you play somebody, in early January and then you don't see them again until the ACC tournament, well, it's a long stretch. And so you can't make assumptions on what they were doing then. You have to really rely on how they're playing at that given time. And so it's going to be a lot of information exchange, between the coaching staff and the players, and how well they process it and then put it into game, action, without thinking too much, is going to be really, really important for us. So I'm excited about the conference. I'm excited about the health of the conference and how competitive it's going to be. And I'm looking forward to to getting going.
Mike.
Last time we huddled, you talked a little bit about your process of getting to know the players. You said you didn't want to put them in a box. You wanted to let them show you kind of who they were. As we're getting closer to games that will count, where are you in that process? And again, going back to the old age of the team, do you give them a little more time because they're older to kind of define their own roles?
Yeah, we have a much better feel for where the guys are right now compared to where they were over the summer. And so I think they're settling in. They're not certainly in the exact roles that we need them to be in, on this day, but they're getting there. They're showing signs of growth each and every day in the practices of learning how are we going to play to our strengths. Like, what are the strengths of this particular player? What situations do we want to try to put him in so that he can have the most success, which will help, obviously, our team. And so I think we're on the right path there. I think the guys understand, who can do what. And when you're in that situation, it only helps your confidence grow. And so I think we're doing our best right now without having played anybody else, and so what might be a strength in our gym, when we start to play somebody else, maybe it's not a strength. And so, again, your opponents eventually tell you kind of where you need to go with things.
Take one in the back.
Coach, where is the majority of your focus on before these scrimmages when it comes to the elements of your team?
Yeah, the focus is on getting better every day and trying to do our best to improve all aspects of our team. It's the mental edge. We want guys really confident, but not overconfident. We certainly are working on all aspects, defensively, putting it in our system and really getting these guys ready for different situations that they're going to see, early in the season, because you have to be ready on game 1. And these next 2 exhibitions are going to be really helpful for us in preparation for the season. So, offensively, we're really trying to define, the way that we're going to play. And, I think we're in a good spot there right now. And it'll be interesting to see, because right now, we don't have a ton of subs in practice. And so they'll get a little bit winded from time to time, and which is normal. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of how that, shows up when we play against someone else. And they're only having to play a 3.5-minute stretch. Now, the key is they can't save it. They have to, in that 3.5-minute stretch, go really, really hard and know that somebody's coming to get them, pretty quickly, and we need that person to do it, when they come in. And so, I'm looking forward to seeing those guys, out there competing.
Got time for two more. We'll take one in the middle and then finish off the
Coach, Devin Tillis has a really unique offensive skill set, especially. He even ran point at UC Irvine a lot. On a team that has a lot of guys who are used to high usage rates, looking at Dallin Hall, Jahari White, Millie Thomas, how do you sort of see him fitting into the team schematically? Do you see him as a primary or a secondary ball handler? Or are you trying to get him more as a screener in the short role? Sort of how do you see him fitting into the team?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a good handler. There's no question about it. I mean, I'm really comfortable with him in pick and roll, him making decisions, with the ball, with others screening, him on the block, posting up. He's a really good passer from the interior, and he's a really good finisher. Like, he's a good shooter as well. So he's going to be a really important player for us. Absolutely adds to our depth. His experience, his toughness, his smarts are going to be really important, for us. So he's a big player, for Virginia. There's no question about it. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, you got a lot of players with strong track records of three-point career percentage. Has it been there in practice?
Not yesterday.
Not yesterday. I guess, how do you kind of pull the most and make sure you get the most out of a lot of players who've proven they can shoot the ball from deep?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we seek the three-point shot, the open ones. We're not just, trying to fire threes to fire threes. We want the right threes. And so I think the guys are doing a really good job. I mean, yesterday we just didn't make shots. Like, we were getting them, we just didn't make them. And you're going to have some of those days. And so that's where your defense, really has to be tight, and for you to be able to separate, and your offensive rebounding. So when you're not shooting the ball like you're capable of shooting it as a group, well, that's where the offensive rebounding comes into play. And last year's team at VCU was excellent in that regard. And so, we're trying to focus on making sure that this year's team, at UVA is. And the guys have done a really nice job so far in the preseason with that. In terms of usage rate, because you asked about the usage rate, majority of my teams share in that. We're not usually dominated by one guy. And so all of these guys understand that, and we'll show them that. Matt Hart and I will show them that, kind of what their usage rates are, what they were over the summer, where they are now. Some of them needed to go down a little bit. Some of them needed to go up a little bit. But typically, it's pretty well balanced, across the board, just because we share the ball and move it.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.